Okay, you guys, here is your lesson today for volume. Volume is the number of cubic units needed to fill a solid. The formulas that we're going to use for prisms and cylinders is the volume equals the area of the base times height. Notice that the capital B stands for the area of the base. This is different than a two-dimensional figure. In a two-dimensional figure, like a rectangle, you would have a lowercase b, and that would just be a linear line. Capital B, whenever you see that, is the area of the base. Pyramids and cones will be using volume equals 1/3. Okay, and I'm sorry about that. The next thing you would do is you would look, the H, just a lowercase, stands for the height of the solid. So in a prism, that means it would connect the bases. So to start off with, we're going to look at the first example. Shapes are identified by their base. So in this one, the base is a rectangle. So this would be a rectangular prism. Now, just to review with a prism has two parallel identical bases, and the lateral faces are always going to be rectangles. So this is a prism, and this is a prism. This is what we would call a triangular prism. And it's triangular because the base is triangle. So these two of the bases is just on its side. They are parallel and they're identical. And remember, your lateral faces are going to be your rectangles. So these are both examples of prisms. And again, you name your solid figure by its base. So if I were doing this one right here, I would go get my formula. It's a prism, so I'm going to do volume equals the area of the base times the height. The area of the base is a rectangle, so I know to find the area of a rectangle, it's base times height, so it's 60 times 20. And then the height is what's connecting the two bases, which is 10. And we multiply these together, and we get 12,000 centimeters cubed. And don't forget, because every year I have a hard time with people using their commas. If you have more than 4 digits, you need to put your comma after every 3. Okay, for this triangular prism, okay, we're going to do the same. Volume equals the area of the base times the height. So on this one, the area of the base comes from the triangle. So the area of a triangle is half the base times the height. And then this height is the height that connects my two bases. So this height goes with that number right there, and that's the height of the prism. So this is 25 right here. So this is going to go here, and then the area of the base goes with what our yellow is. So that's going to be all of this right here. So let's go put our numbers in. So we get half, the base is 15, times the height, which is 10, times 25. Okay, and we don't have to keep that in. This is all multiplying, so we can go any order we want now. So I would do half of 10, which is 5, times 15, times 25. And when you multiply those, use your calculator, you get 1,875 meters cubed. Okay. For this one, this is a cylinder. And with this one, a cylinder is very similar to a prism in the fact that it has two identical bases that are parallel. However, this can't be a prism because prisms have to be made of polygons, and curved surfaces are not polygons. So even though they kind of have the same characteristics, this is a cylinder and not a prism. But we still use the same formula, so volume equals the area of the base times the height. So on this one, our base is a circle, okay, and our height is what connects the two bases. So our height is right here. So this comes from my height, and this is all the information from my base. So the area of a circle is pi r squared, and then we want to take it times our height. So let's fill in. We're going to keep pi as long as we possibly can. So we're going to get the radius. The radius is 10 squared, and the height is 12. So now I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging. We're going to say pi to the end, so I'm going to move this 10 squared is 100 times 12 times pi, and then 100 times 12 is 1200 times pi. So we want to always keep pi as long as you can, and we call this in terms of pi. And the reason we want to do that is because pi is irrational, and since it's irrational, it goes on forever. This way, if somebody has it in terms of pi, they can use however many decimal places they want, depending on what precision they need. And then we'll go one more step after we do that, and we will go ahead and we're going to use, whenever we use pi, we're going to use 3.14 or 22/7 when we use that. We're not just going to use the pi key on the calculator. So take this times 3.14 and we get 3,768 inches cubed. Okay. All right. The next part we're going to do is we're going to move into pyramids and cones. So this is a cone because it has curves. So cones and pyramids are similar in that they come up to a peak, which is an apex. But this has curves, not polygons. So it can't be a pyramid and it's a cone. So again, here's my base. It's the circle. And we're going to do volume equals 1/3 the area of the base times the height. So it's almost exact as a prism, but if you think about it, a prism would come straight up. You're having this come up here, so you're losing all that space, the extra space, and it's going to be 1/3 of the area of the base times the height. So bring down your 1/3. The area of the base, which is a circle, is pi r squared times the height, and the height meaning from the very top apex straight down to form a right angle right in the middle of that, and that is going to be my height, and so that is 7. So now we're going to fill in these numbers. So we're going to put 1/3 times pi times, the line goes all the way across, so that is the diameter. We need the radius, so we're going to put in 6 squared, because half of 12 is 6, times 7. Now, I'm going to rearrange things. I'm going to keep my 1/3. I'm going to move my 6 squared here to make this 36. Bring my 7 down, and then put my pi at the end. And 1/3 of 36 is the same as dividing by 3. So we're going to do 36 divided by 3 is 12 times 7 times pi. And 12 times 7 is 84 pi. This is what we mean by in terms of pi. And then at the end, we're going to multiply 84 times 3.14, and we get 263. And we're going to round ours to the hundredths all the time, and we get 263 and 76 hundredths feet cubed. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This base is a square. So we could say a square pyramid, or a square is also a rectangle. So we would call this a rectangular pyramid. So we would do volume equals 1/3 the area of the base, which is going to go from here, times the height, which again, our height goes from the very tip top straight down at that right angle. And so that's going to be that number. So bring down your 1/3. The area of the base is base times height. So we're going to get 2 times 2. And then the height is 3. So in this one, 1/3 of 3 is 3 divided by 3 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4 centimeters cubed. And that would be my solution. Then all by itself, we have a sphere. And a sphere, the formula for volume equals 4/3 pi r squared. So we're going to do 4/3 times pi, and then the radius, in this case, it only goes from the center to the outer edge, is 14 squared. So I'm going to kind of rearrange these, and we're going to do 4/3. 14 squared is, you should know this, 196 times pi. Now, I want to see if I can divide 196 divided by 3. To do that, I'm going to use my divisibility rules. 6 plus 9 is 15, plus 1 is 16. 16 is not divisible by 3, so 196 is not. So I would use my calculator, and I'm going to do 4 times 196 and divide it by 3. So I'm going to show you that real quick on the calculator. I said I was going to do 4 times 196 equals, divided by 3, and we're going to get this repeating decimal. So I could either write that this is equal to 261, and I know a repeating 3 is 1/3, so I could put 1/3 here, or I can put a repeating 3 times pi, and that's my in terms of pi. And to figure this out even further, we're going to leave this in here, and we're going to put times 3.14, and we get this. Now, we want to round to the nearest hundredths place. So here's the tenths, the hundredths, and the 6 is repeating. The only reason we get a 7 is because the calculator rounds that up. 6 tells us to round that 8 up to 9. So we get 820 and 59 hundredths meters cubed. Okay. So here are your examples in your notes. You're going to continue to work on here. It says anything that you do not finish is homework. State the base shape of each figure, then name the salad, find the volume, use pi, you're going to use 3.14. You're going to round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one for you. So remember, everything is named by its base. So I'm going to go ahead, if you want to color in your bases, you can. This, since it has rectangular lateral faces and 2 parallel pentagons, the base is a pentagon. The salad would then be a pentagonal prism. And then my volume is going to be, and you can go look on the other page if you need to, volume equals the area of the base times the height. So I don't know how to find the area of a pentagon, but we don't need to because they've already told us that the capital B, which means the area of the base, is 86. So all I have to do is put 86 in for B. The height that connects them is this right here, which is 15. And 86 times 15, I punch that in the calculator, and I get 1,290. And then don't forget your label. So you're going to do the same thing as you go through, and then when you get to 10, 11, 12, and 13, you have a little bit more on there. You're going to work through this. This will be due on your next in-person day. I would really like you to kind of work alone, but you can, as you get an answer, check with somebody to see if they have the same thing. If they don't, you can talk about it, but I don't want you each just splitting up and doing the answers. I kind of want you to work through as much of it as on your own and then compare your answers as you go.